As part of the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council's 2025 Nutrition Week and 45th anniversary celebrations, we felt it fitting to highlight farmers and their extension officers. Both help build Grenada's food security. In this feature, we highlight Evans Gooding.
My name is Evans Gooding. My farm is located in the Western District, and before this area mostly to northeast of the city, or northeast area.
Well, I wanted to ask you a couple questions as it relates to the care of the soil. So tell us what type of soil you have on your farm and how do you take care of it?
Taking care of soil, we have to educate people on really what is soil. We have the soil that have a living organism. Just as you and I living and surviving, the soil live and survive the same way, but we have to know how to feed the soil. One of the things I do when people ask me about soil, I turn around and ask you a few basic questions. Turn around, look at that hill there. Let me ask you a question. All of you, who was the last person to go up there and fertilize that hill? Now, you know those things need nutrients in order to grow. Look at my pepper here. They need something in them to grow. Who was the last person to go up there and fertilize that hill to grow? Composting, the high speaking grade is survived by composting. And if we learn, I always tell people in Ministry of Agriculture, let us learn how the forest survive and bring that into our everyday agriculture. I know what they're going to tell me. They go bring me in the atmosphere, they go give me physics, they go give me about, evaporation and all those things. Fine. But you are the technical person. Learn how it takes into the forest and bring it in the plain for our farmers to learn from that. Because if they could keep up the green without putting the granular fertilizer, then we could bring it in the plain without using granular fertilizer into the field. Now here's what happened. When the birds let go the feces, or the monkey, and the leaves fall, and what we call rain and dew, when all that fall under the ground, under the canopy there, and that break down, that's how they survive. That's how they make the composting, and that's how they live. So in order to show you how because when I make compost, when we make compost, we go and we collect horse manure, we collect the seaweed, we go down to SGU and we get all the manure from down there, and you get your green grass, you get your dry grass, and you do your layers. And in order to get a good field of composting, it takes, for a commercial area, it takes 3 months. Anybody try to make, well, there might be technology and other ways from doing it, but as for our knowledge, in order to get a good handful of composting, it takes 3 months. Because when we make it, when we put the layers, every 10 days we turn it. So when you reach up to a good 3 months, then you get at that time you even tell the difference between mud and composting. That's how well it look.
What other ways do you keep your soil healthy besides what you mentioned?
I don't burn at all. I try to use at least granular fertilizer as much as possible, and all the scrap, all the trees, no matter how you treat it, I try to keep it on the soil. People might, if the fellows ask you, hey, Mr. Evans, you just cut the bush and you ain't plant nothing. You don't see the secret behind that, because that same grass you cut, that's what break down and keep moisture into the soil. If you take out a pile of mud and you throw it down and you keep walking on it, all you do is compress. Tight. When you take all the grass and the leaf and you put the same way, now when all this thing mud try to combine, you have this little piece of stick and everything here, so you like aerating the soil. So you actually find the soil pretty much aerated by having all your scraps and things in the soil, as opposed to just have the mud that you clean, you cut and you rake out, and you rake out all the tops of the grass and you throw it away. You leave in just the soil to bear and to expose. And I try not to do that. I will cut and I don't rake and I don't burn. Even if you go back there now and the gentleman come and cut in the bush, you do the weed eater. It's not the best thing to use in the environment, because you use the weed eater, it's gas and the motor and you give them a fume. But as far as my soil, I just cut and then let that grass take and break. So when I come to plow, all of that is plowed within the soil. So when you plow, you don't get it really tight as it should. But because of the leaves, the grass that cut, that remain in the soil, and that help the soil to aerate. There's a group called Backyard Gardening they come through ICA. Mr. Derek Charles was at ICA at the time. I think it's two FA or one of them that they bring to the backyard garden and giving beams and stuff like that. Every time I look and see what these women, how they exchange, and one grew a cabbage or so, and they post it, and they talk about composting, and they show it. Look at my composting, and they feel proud on how they're making composting.
Just a few more questions. Do you do intercropping?
Yeah.
Can you explain that to the viewers what that means?
Mostly I do intercropping with, I do a lot of pepper, seasoned pepper. I intercrop mostly with cabbage. For two reasons. Cabbage will give you a certain coverage to control your weeds, and I plant my pepper sometimes 3.5 feet, 4 feet apart. So there's a waste space in between here. So I actually plant a couple, 2 or 3 cabbage in between here. So I intercrop my seasoned pepper with cabbage. I look at one cabbage now is my cash crop to continue helping the seasoned pepper to wait. So I get in 2 cash. One, I could use the cabbage to pay the guys who are working for me. I could use them as much as possible. If I get them to work to give me an honest day's work for honest day's pay, they get paid through the cabbage, and I get my payment as the owner to my seasoned pepper. So I like to intercrop with that. Most people intercrop with corn and potato, but mostly I use that. That's intercropping. You do yam again. When I do my root crop, I do yam, and I use corn as my stick. So I intercrop corn with seasoned pepper.
Excellent.
As opposed to going out and cut stick and bring stick, pay for cutting stick, pay for sticking, pay for wrapping. I just, when the corn going up, I just start the vine, and the vine continue until I'm going harmony. I break off the corn, and they continue doing whatever they have to do. One thing in terms of when I explain the soil to persons, how your soil retaining nutrients. There's some farmers when they grow in, they realize that if they plant a crop and they put fertilizer and the crop is not growing, what they have a tendency to say, the soil will have enough, so you buy more fertilizer and keep putting fertilizer. But that's not what the soil wanted. The soil wants fertilizer. You drain the soil, so there's really no nutrients for the crop. When you make tea, what you do? You take the tea bag, right? You have a cup of water, and you put the tea bag in there, and you dunk it. If you like me, when I take that tea bag, I squeeze it to make sure I get the last drop out, and then I throw the tea bag. So watch that. You're planting a crop, and the crop grow. Wow, you get a great harvest. You plant back. Wow, you get a great harvest. What the plant is getting? The plant is getting nutrients from the soil. So if you're not feeding the soil to give the soil more nutrients to grow more crops, you realize, hey, my crop ain't giving me what I used to get before, because you're focusing on one thing. You're only focusing on the crop you're getting, but you're not focusing on what giving the crop the nutrients to grow. And more the granular fertilizer you're doing, sometimes you're making the soil more arid, you're making, and you're not getting the nutrients. So unless you begin to incorporate what is in the environment, and what the soil knows is the leaves and the thing, that's one big happy for the environment, We invade it by bringing the granular fertilizer, put it in the environment, put it in the soil. But the soil don't know that, the soil don't absorb that. It's the leaves and the grass and stuff like that that you absorb. So I always call it effect what farmers do in the composting. They make the junk, they soak the soil to let it nice crop. Whoa! And they continue doing that. But continue to feed the soil with all the environment, leaves and grass and the compost, and then you will continue seeing your crops growing. But if you don't do that, you just wasting your time by trying to get a good crop without feeding the soil. The soil is a living organism. It needs to survive.
If you're growing crops for food security as a home gardener, now you may be using containers, you may be using a bin or whatever. What you can do once you harvest your crop, you can dig up your soil and you can replenish it by putting in some organic matter, compost in it. You can put pen manure, and so you're helping to build the nutrients in your soil before you start replanting. You collect your food scraps and you have it in the area. Then you do your weeding and whatnot. You collect your green stuff, and you could get your browns from whether it's dry material or you could even use cardboard.
It's very, very important. Don't include your meat scrap. in there because you go hard getting rodents, something coming, you know. Yeah, so
and
don't
things
don't,
like eggs.
yeah.
They introduce salmonella and other bacteria that you do not want to be introduced in it. So you try to keep that away. Like if you're using the eggshells,
right,
you
grind
wash it out first, and then you put it, you know, you mince it up and grind it inside of your compost. But just applying it like that is not a good habit really.
So what are some other examples? Meat scraps is a no.
Yeah.
The peel of a potato,
Right.
All of that you can use.
Any vegetable
provisions,
leftovers.
and all
Throw
of
that,
that,
just throw that in there.
yeah.
But what about leftovers from like the dinner plate where it may have gravy from the chicken? How about that?
You don't want to
No.
use things that
Yeah.
rodents like
Once
to attract them.
the
Don't you
rodents
want
and
to do
other
that.
pests,
Yes.
you do not want those things in your compost because they will just basically be introducing pathogens and other diseases into it, and that could be affecting you in the long term.
Things of nature, try to pull back nature and feed nature.
Green matter.
Yeah, especially green matter and stuff like that. But again, I'm going to pick them up again. The backyard gardening, they have learned from COVID, and they continue that going and feeding themselves. Yeah. Also, besides this extension officer here, there's one who don't really come out too much, go behind the scenes. She really work well in terms of keeping the farmer informed of the environment and the rain. Is Miss Minabuka. She always finds something with the weather or posting, so you know. In terms of farmer, you may want to fertilize today, but you know you're not certain about the weather. But when you look and see what Mina is posting, I say, well, I'm not going to fertilize it because you want too much rain, because she give her the weather forecast to know what it comes. So I want to give her a big up to Mina. So thank you for all the posting for us. We cannot do it without from the minister on down to extension officer. It has to continue to be a team effort where what my problem is the farm, I could take the extension officer and they bring back to the technical technical person. So I have all of them phone number. I could call them and say, look, I'm having a problem here, or what the Ministry of Agriculture have. My tanks and stuff like that, they come from the Ministry of Agriculture to the extension officer.